So the 2021 Formula 1 season will be remembered for a long time. I hope. You've got the collisions, you've got the switchy swappiness of the title fight, like who's at the top and all that stuff, and everything else. And if you've been around here a while, you'll know that I love the controversial stuff, the stuff that everybody will talk about forever. Stuff like Option 13 that I covered last week, stuff like Adelaide 94, stuff like Jerez 97, stuff like Suzuka 89 and Suzuka 1990. The stuff that everybody talks about are the best stuff because there's just so much to look at and so many opinions to gather. But one moment that I will remember watching on television forever is the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix. But specifically the whole Timo Glock moved over so Lewis could win controversy, or conspiracy we should probably call it. That's the bit that gets me interested. Where the hell did that start? It's something that gets shouted out from the rooftops every time footage of that race is shown. Glock moved over. So where did it come from? So to find out, let's look at the events that led up to that infamous moment. The championship permutations were pretty simple. If Massa won the race, Lewis could finish no lower than 5th, and Lewis actually started in 4th after a bad qualifying session for this race. In fact, there were actually whisperings in the British media that Hamilton was more likely to bottle it again than he was to actually win. The start was delayed for about 10 minutes because it started to rain on the grid, and it gave everybody the opportunity to switch over their tyres to more suitable tyres for the weather conditions. Everybody swapped over except Kubica. In their infinite wisdom, BMW had decided, yeah, we'll swap over Nick's tyres, but we won't swap over Robert's. The lights went out and Massa got a great getaway, leading into turn 1 ahead of Trulli's Toyota, teammate Raikkonen and Hamilton. At the back of the field, Coulthard was clobbered at turn 1 by Nakajima's Williams, and Piquet Jr. went off at turn 3, causing a safety car. Forcini decided to put Fisichella back on dry tyres behind the safety car, and everybody else soon followed suit. By lap 11, Fisichella had jumped from last to 5th. Nakajima then spun on lap 13 but kept it out of the wall, which meant that Massa led from Vettel with Lewis now in 6th. Lewis's McLaren definitely had the pace, but the tricky conditions offline meant he couldn't pass the Force India until lap 18. Hamilton wasn't driving like he'd done earlier in the season. Before, it was like he was Senna, or at least channeling his hero Senna, driving at 110% lap after lap after lap, but now he was going for a more Prost-like approach, being methodical, playing to the percentages, playing to the numbers, He only needed 5th, so why bother trying to win the race when 5th would do? That would have been the case if the weather had behaved itself during that Grand Prix. Massa made his final scheduled stop on lap 38, and then he pulled out in front of Alonso, Raikkonen, Hamilton and Vettel. Glock filled up to the end on lap 36. Raikkonen then came in on lap 43 to have a lighter car towards the end, and Fisichella's great run at the track where he'd won in 2003 ended when his transmission started playing up and he dropped to 18th. Vettel came in on lap 51, and by lap 54 Massa had a 9.6 second lead over Alonso. Vettel meanwhile was closing in on Hamilton. Monza had already shown that the Toro Rosso was good in the wet, and it appeared that the Toro Rosso on this occasion had been set up for more wet weather running, while the McLaren was set up for more dry weather running. On lap 63 it started splitting again, and Heidfeld was the first to take wet weather tyres. He'd been one of the few at Spa to take wets at the end of the race when it started raining there, and he'd actually jumped up into a podium paying position as a result. Kovalainen came in on lap 65 and Alonso and Raikkonen a lap later. Hamilton and Vettel held on until the last possible minute. Meanwhile, Glock had stayed out there on the dry weather rubber, and with everybody else stopping, he managed to jump the queue from 7th up to 4th, and by lap 67, all of the front runners, except for Glock, were now on the intermediate tyre. Massa had a clean run to another home victory. He'd won there in 2006 and probably could have in 2007 if not for Raikkonen needing the points, but then the weather went full loco. It chucked it down with no notice. Hamilton went wide on lap 69. Nice, after Kubica decided he was going to unlap himself and Vettel jumped through the gap that was still there. Vettel was now 5th and now Lewis in 6th, and in the wet the Toro Rosso had more grip, so as it stood, Massa had the title. But Lewis wasn't just going to sit there and let Vettel run away with it. He tried everything in the racing rulebook to try and get Vettel to make a mistake, such as sticking his nose in a way to make Seb chicken out of the corner and praying some lap traffic would get in the way. Vettel later admitted he didn't know what position he was in and had no idea he was influencing the championship. The conditions had now become greasy and the final lap coincided with a full-on deluge. It might as well have been night time, it was that dark. You could see the flashbulbs going off as the locals tried to take pictures of their new world champion as he came on by. Brazil's first champion since 1991, that never was. And then on the final lap, the other piece of commentary that is up there with, and now I have to stop because I've got a lump in my throat. James Allen, who has taken the Commonwealth audience through the action, said, "Can Hamilton do anything? Can he run it up the inside of Vettel? Only a few corners to go and desperation starts to creep in for Lewis Hamilton." Brundle then started adding his bit, saying, "Raikkonen is third, and is that Glock? Is that Glock going slowly? That's Glock!" Hamilton was now back in position, and in the words of James Allen, 100,000 local hearts sink in the grandstands. Weird to think that in 2007 the Brazilians were actually supporting Hamilton as he was in a McLaren and had a yellow helmet that reminded them of Sao Paulo's most famous son. Now Hamilton was the enemy as Massa was now in a shot of taking the title. Massa was so local he'd worked at one of the burger vans or something similar back in the 90s. Toyota's gamble hadn't paid off. Well, it had and it hadn't really, because not stopping had given Glock 4th from 7th, and then at the end of the race he dropped to 6th, so he'd actually gained a position, but not what we were actually hoping for. On lap 70, Glock's times had been okay, all things considered, and he'd actually been faster than his teammate Jarno Trulli. And I guess this is where some of the Tucker dive conspiracy came from, as on the lap before that final lap, Glock had been 5 seconds faster than his teammate, only to magically slow down the next time round. That final lap, Glock had lost 16 seconds overall. So Glock was faster than Trulli and then magically slowed down on the lap that Hamilton passed him. The fact that it was the final corner of the final lap of the final race just added to the convenience of it all. And after doing some searching on the good old Google, it looks like the conspiracy theory started in Spain. The Spanish already didn't like Hamilton because of the whole 2007 thing, where they thought Hamilton had cost Alonso his 3rd world title, and to a lesser extent some Spanish fans were spotted at the testing in the February of 2008 in full blackface and wigs wearing t-shirts that said Hamilton's family. But online, some of the more broadcastable comments levelled at Lewis included, "Who are Hamilton's friends in the paddock? Rosberg and Glock. Enough said." There was also a website called, and I just need to check this, pinchaLaRuedaDeHamilton.com, which translates to "click the wheel of Hamilton", so I'm assuming it was some sort of Wheel of Fortune type game that had some sort of not very nice things about Lewis Hamilton on it. The website has since disappeared, but during the sort of end of the 2007 season it got over 500,000 hits. So needless to say, they didn't particularly like Lewis Hamilton in Spain. But to say it was just the Spanish media could be a bit of a cop-out, as even here in the UK there were comments on forums, social media and newspaper have your say sections suggesting that Glock had indeed taken a dive, with some comments including, "Glock stopped for Hamilton because they are buddies from GP2. Glock needs to be banned from FIA sanctioned events for life." Unbelievable. It probably didn't help Glock's cause that after the race he was seen trying to congratulate Lewis on the title after the race in Parc Ferme, but Lewis was too busy trying to get the steering wheel back on his car because it wouldn't go back on properly and he didn't want to get disqualified. Then on BBC Radio 5 Live, the switchboards for the phone-ins were lit up with people questioning the legitimacy of the championship win. So I guess it really just goes down to everybody having the same idea. They say great minds think alike, but not on this occasion. But if you look at the live timings for that final lap, Glock did a 1:44.731. Trulli did a 1:44.8 dead. You can't choreograph that. So whether Glock pitted or not, Hamilton would have still won the title. I guess I've inadvertently added to the conspiracy theory further because they both did a 1:44. #blessed. Glock had also felt aggrieved by an overtake done on him by Hamilton at Monza earlier that season, and he vowed never to make an overtake easy for Hamilton ever again. So there really is no conspiracy. The weather gods had intervened and it gave Hamilton the position he needed to take the title back. It just happened to be the final corner of the final lap of the final race. And Fernando Alonso, who had no reason to be mates with Lewis Hamilton after the whole 2007 thing, stated that the conspiracies were rubbish, and even Ferrari, who lost the most in terms of the Drivers' Championship, didn't even bother to protest this moving out of the way. Alonso said, "It's clear Glock didn't let him pass or did anything strange. In fact, I don't know how he got to the finish at all with dry tyres. He and Trulli both did the same time at the end." The Ferrari crews and Massa's father and brother were already celebrating before a mechanic broke up the celebrations to tell everybody that Lewis had instead won. Then that mechanic went and nutted the wall in frustration. Let's be honest, it was a title born out of sheer luck rather than strategy, but that's racing. That's sport. You know, you can't deny that this is one of the most epic endings to a season in any sport ever. For me, it's up there with... In the most harem-scarum way, as the ITV commentary put it, the title was decided on the last corner of the last lap of the last race. It doesn't get any more tense than that. So this has been a look at the Timo Glock moving over conspiracy that still rages on today whenever footage of that 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix is brought up. If you've found it entertaining, you know, it's kind of an adaptation of the previous video that I made on this as part of the Storytime series, but you know, I thought I'd improve it, add on it, look more at the conspiracy rather than the actual race, and yeah, let me know what you think about it by thumbing the video up, and you know, subscribe and get that bell on as well so you never miss out on one of my future videos. Massive thanks as ever go out to the good folk of Patreon. If you wish to join them in supporting me at a more personal level, or just join in the Discord chat, follow me on social media, all that good stuff, I'll leave all the relevant links you need down in the description box for you. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind. Have a great day wherever you live in the world, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.